Okay. We did it. Alright. Well, that's credits, baby. First things first. The bottom center of the screen says that we've beaten 18 games in 2024 and 465 since we started doing this in 2020. Those numbers are now obsolete. We've now beaten 19 games in 2024 and 466 since we started doing this in 2020. Let's go. All right. I have a lot to say. I'm going to try and do it quickly about this game, but let me just start by saying that this game exceeded every expectation that I had. I was expecting something maybe good. I was expecting something good, maybe hopefully good, like hopefully, you know, I don't know, mid-tier survival horror kind of a game, action game. This is one of the best action games of this genre that I've ever played. And it's hard to say exactly why. There are a lot of things that, the normal things that in these videos, when I talk about the highlights, what do I often bring up? The combat. The combat in this game was good. It was not great. The RNG, the RPG mechanics, like the skill trees and the abilities and leveling gear, all that kind of stuff is something I come up with a lot. That stuff in this game was good. It was not great. It was mostly unremarkable. It was good. It was good. Unremarkable might be a little strong, but it was good. It was not great. It wasn't God tier. It wasn't awesome. None of that stuff was awesome. What was awesome? So those are the things that I usually care about the most: the combat, all the RPG stuff, the gear, that kind of stuff. Those are kind of some of my favorite things. Boss fights, stuff like that. The boss fights in this game were good. They were not great. That's another thing that I usually find to be very important. But what was great in this game, it starts with the story. The story is very unique, very interesting, very deep, very complex, very well written. The characters are well written. The characters are well voiced. This world that is built in this game, in this late 17th century New England dark gothic world that you live in, is incredible. So the story is incredible, the world and the lore is really incredible, and they went really deep with it. You can really, I did mostly just the required amount, but this is a very deeply built world that you can spend probably 60 hours in at least if you want to. I didn't spend about half that. But I mean, this is a long game. It's a big game. It took me, I don't know exactly how long it took me, but I guess close to 30 hours doing basically the bare minimum. And this is a big fucking game. You can do a lot of stuff. And it's just the world is very deep. There are whole branches of characters that I never even talked to that I knew that I could have. I mean, the world that's kind of a semi-open world is so full of stuff to do, and it is not anything like your normal Ubisoft open world stuff. It is nothing like that. It's more like these haunting investigative cases, like Ace Attorney almost kind of style, but you're trying to figure out the origin of ghosts. I've heard a little bit about The Witcher 3. I've never watched anyone play that or anything, or played it myself, but there's you have to get down to the bottom of these mysteries of these ghosts or whatever. It's a lot of that, and you have to solve these cases basically, and there are dozens of them. They're all over the map. And those require, of course, going to different places, going to new areas of the map, fighting certain things, fighting bosses, whatever. And it's everywhere. It's everywhere. This game has so much to do, and it is hyper interesting, not your standard cookie cutter stuff. It is a very unique semi-open world. I'd say it's mostly open. You can fast travel pretty much anywhere you want. There are certain parts of the game that you're kind of locked in. You can't fast travel. That's the only reason I hesitate to call it a truly open world. And you can go to these places anytime you want and really live in this well-developed world. It is so cool. It is so cool. So I think that's the main thing. It's like this world that they've built. There's so much to do in it. There's so much to get into. There's so many people to get to know. There are so many mysteries to solve. And you know, the combat and the skill trees and the gear and stuff, it carries you. It's there too, and it's not bad. It's not bad. It's good. Actually, I really liked the gear, the way that the gear worked. It was kind of a bordering on a rarity-based loot system. It's not really rarity-based because you don't find a legendary or something like that, but you can upgrade your gear with craftables that you find off of encounters and bosses and things like that. And if you get enough of them, then you can upgrade your stuff to relic quality. So there is some of that, but it's more about upgrading with stuff that you find off bosses and stuff than it is like finding a legendary, you know. But it was fun. It was good. I did enjoy that quite a bit. It wasn't great, but it was pretty good. You know, the game technically looks very AAA. It looks really good. And the game that this reminded me the most of when I played it was Plague Tale Requiem. That game, it feels a lot like that game. It takes place in, I don't think it's exactly around the same time. I think this is a couple hundred years later or something. I don't remember exactly, but it's kind of like that. And it's got unconventional combat like Plague Tale does. It's got a very interesting story that mixes true historical settings and events with supernatural entities and forces and things like that. It's very much like it in that way. And again, the combat there is some elements of traditional combat in it, but it mostly does its own thing, you know. And it's not, this combat in this game isn't anything like Plague Tale. They're both very different from your standard ARPG combat, right? So that I kept thinking about that game when I was playing this, and it scratched some similar itches, although there were some differences. I think I like it about as much, and I fucking loved that game. So I think it's going to rank somewhere around there, and that's a top 50 game. I think that's around 30. That's where I'm thinking this is probably going to end up. The Plague Tale's a little different because it's a lot more linear. It doesn't have any of this investigative stuff. There was more about this game that went in some different directions with this game. The only thing that I think that I definitely like more than this with Plague Tale is that there's no character in this game that's as cool as Amicia. There are some cool fucking characters in Plague Tale, and there are some really cool. I mean, the characters are great in this game. So don't take that to be a knock. This game has some amazing characters. Oh, and one of the other things that I really loved about this game is that I chose, once I found out that there was a kind of a couple of different paths that you could take, I decided to do an evil run. And I don't hardly ever do that. And I don't think I've done that since Cyberpunk. That was like 2020. Like to do full on evil run. And it was a blast to do the, like, it's hard. It's not quite right to call it evil, but it's clearly the less moral choice to get to do what I did. And it was so much fun. It was so much fun to just fucking do these things that have these lasting impacts on the world. And that's another thing about this game is, like, once you would make these decisions, it would change. It seemed like it would change all the dialogue. Like everything, it felt like this world really reacted to what you did. Like you would do something bad to somebody, and then you would see that person's sister later, and it would be fucking awkward. And it would be definitely different dialogue than you would get if you had done gone the moral route. So, like, living in this world where it's like, yeah, we're supposed to be these good guys that are trying to save the world or whatever, save this area, lift the curse or whatever. But also, we're going around doing these horrible things. And the characters in the game, the NPCs that you meet, they really treat you like you are this savior that's also kind of fucked up. You know, and there were so many times where, like, there would be little flourishes of dialogue that definitely wouldn't have been there if I hadn't been playing the way I did. And like whole trees of dialogue and like whole, you know, just the way that we were regarded by certain important characters. It was, I felt it doesn't usually feel like that. I tried to do, when I did like an evil corpo run in Cyberpunk, it didn't matter. It didn't matter at all. It really didn't. Most games, it just doesn't really matter. It changes the ending, usually. And I could definitely tell that the ending that we got, this game probably has a bunch of endings. Because there's a lot of different ways that you can, like, you can do an evil run and do it well. And you can do an evil run and do it poorly. And those are probably different outcomes at the end. Because we did an evil run and we didn't do it very well. Because we weren't very thorough. And so I bet this game has a bunch of endings. And the ending that we got felt perfectly appropriate for what we did, how much we did, how much we didn't do, and the moral choices that we made, which are mostly negative. So I just loved that. It's just this world that I'm kind of pissed because I cannot find much about this game, which leads me to believe that nobody's playing it. And people need to be playing this game. This game is so fucking good. And even from just a bang for your buck perspective, this game is so meaty. There's just so much game. I mean, this game took me longer than Ragnarok. And I blew through it. I blew through Ragnarok too, but that game took me like 26 hours or something. This game, I think, took me longer than that. I mean, and I didn't do, I don't know, 20% of the content, probably. I mean, this is a big game. It's a big, I don't know if that's math probably doesn't check out. I doubt it's a 100-hour game, but this could easily be an 80-hour game. Definitely could be. All right. I loved this game. I love this game. It's great. Let's just go ahead and there's probably some New Game Plus that I am genuinely interested in, but we're not going to go there right now. All right, last order of business. Banishers, Ghosts of New Eden. It's been fun, but we are now going to delete you from our console and never play you again. Bye. I hope more people play you.